If you're active in Gamergate, you've undoubtedly heard by now of the UN's latest report on what they call cyber violence. Their definition of cyber violence is a little wishy-washy, but it basically means saying mean things on the internet, apparently. A Washington Post article gives a rundown of the policy recommendations in the report. The respect for and security of girls and women must at all times be front and center, the report reads, not only for those producing and providing the content, but also everyone with any role in shaping the, quote, technical backbone and enabling environment of our digital society. How that would actually work, we don't know. The report is light on concrete, actionable policy, but it repeatedly suggests both that social networks need to opt in to stronger anti-harassment regimes and that governments need to enforce them proactively. At one point toward the end of the paper, the UN panel concludes that political and governmental bodies need to use their licensing prerogative to better protect human and women's rights, only granting licenses to those telecoms and search engines that, quote, supervise content and its dissemination. In other words, the United Nations believes that online platforms should be A, generally responsible for the action of their users, and B, specifically responsible for making sure those people aren't harassers. So basically, the UN recommends that the entire internet must be forced to become much more proactive in limiting speech which might be offensive to others, and to limit the personal attacks and criticisms that people can make, with the risk of having their license of operating being revoked if they don't. Predictably, most people in Gamergate seem adamantly opposed to these policy recommendations. For instance, there was a thread on the subreddit KotakuInAction, KiA for short, which dissected the citations in the report and proved them to be, shall we say, worthy of a failing grade at even a community college. The Redditors at the subreddit seemed to be overjoyed that the report was at least partially debunked, and the thread on that subject received an astounding 3,400 upvotes. But let's touch back on that Washington Post article for a second. The author's biggest gripe with the report was that it wasn't specifically mentioned how these communities were supposed to crack down on free speech and create sterile and sanitary safe spaces which would be devoid of personal attacks and insults. However, if the author of the Washington Post article wanted a feasible solution to enact that sort of Stasi-esque police state, all she would have to do is simply ask KotakuInAction, the subreddit, which seemed to be infuriated by the report. Actually, I'm not even sure why KiA is upset about these policy recommendations at all. All they're really asking for is for the whole internet to become exactly like their very own subreddit. If you think that is hyperbole, you would be mistaken. KiA has proactively taken all of the policy suggestions regarding policing of free speech and put them into service on their very own site, without even being told to do so. And it's even worse. These rules have been in place for a year. KotakuInAction thought of these rules on their own. Let me give you an example. Yesterday I was given a warning from a moderator because I called someone a retard and told them that they should kill themselves if they think that facts shouldn't be brought to the table to prove something that people already assume to be true. They said that I violated rule number 1, and being rule number 1, I assume that that means that it was the very first rule that the moderators even came up with. The rule states, discuss things respectfully. Don't just attack people. If you end up arguing, respond to the argument, not the person. It is okay to disagree with someone, but ad hominem arguments and personal hostility are unwelcome here. Don't tear someone down just because they're a proud feminist or MRA, libertarian, communist, or whatever. You're considered to be in violation if you do any of the following things repeatedly. Brazenly insult others, example, you're a fucking stupid bitch. Wish harm on others, examples, kill yourself, idiot, I hope you get cancer. Then the moderator proceeded to note that I had done 3 of the following offenses. I stated, you're a retard, called him a stupid fuck, and I stated that he should kill himself if he held a certain ideology. I responded by saying, you faggots have the audacity to be outraged by the UN report when essentially they are just saying that the whole internet should make itself a safe place like this cuck box. The level of hypocrisy there is hilarious, but simultaneously pathetic that you are not self-aware. Your whole subreddit should kill itself simultaneously. Here's an idea. You chuckle fucks have such a herd mentality, you should just start a stampede and all run off a cliff. You are all fucking cancer and the antithesis of everything real GGers fight for. predictably, they responded by giving me a 3-day ban. Look, honestly, I was expecting to get a ban for what I wrote, but that's the whole point. They proved that they should actually be giving the UN advice on how to enforce their safe space internet police state, and honestly, I have no clue why they're even mad about the policy recommendations. The author of the Washington Post article should take notice. If her biggest gripe with the UN report was that it is unfeasible to enforce a safe space like they say is necessary, she only needs to look at the hypocrites at KotakuInAction to see that it could actually be done very effectively.